Hi everyone, this is my classroom assessment plan of action. In here I'll have my goals, some new strategies, and some examples. Here are some of my assessment goals for this upcoming school year. I'm glad I took this class in the summer before the new school year begins because it's going to allow me to integrate new strategies and skills into my instruction to improve student learning. My first goal is to place an emphasis on growth mindset. For many of my students, kindergarten is their first experience with formal education, and I feel it's necessary to begin teaching students to have the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset at the start of their educational career. I hope by welcoming a growth mindset into my classroom, my students will place more value in their learning. This relates back to Carol Dweck's clip on the effect of praise on mindset. She stated, "No matter who you are, you can become a great deal smarter." Praise is a crucial aspect in student learning, and I would like to move away from the good boy syndrome, which I know I'm guilty of, and praise more on effect and the process versus praising on intelligence and the knowledge, which can be harmful to the student's mindset. My next goal is to increase my use of formative assessment. By planning my formative assessments, I can help to ensure my students are achieving the building blocks on their way to the end outcome. The plan is essential in reaching all of the goals to be successful in completing the task required in the learning progression. The formative assessment process should be built into the plan as it helps to make necessary adjustments like last minute changes, near future, those immediate changes, or even just to promote climate change in the classroom. By utilizing the formative assessment process, it will allow me to diagnose those areas of needs and adjustment. It allows teachers to diagnose, address, and correct student misconceptions instead of letting those misconceptions sit overnight, which can make it hard to get those out in the future. By implementing a more structured approach to formative assessment, it will allow me to become more comfortable in using the approaches like open questions and to increase the use of higher order thinking for my kindergartners. My end goal is to create thinkers, not students who can reciprocate information from their rote memory. My next goal involves creating a more brain-friendly classroom environment. Brain-friendly assessment approaches encourage students to have multiple opportunities to learn and utilize the concepts that are taught. And Maria Tate, in her text, Formative Assessments in Brain-Compatible Classrooms, states, "Most brains need to hear something a minimum of 3 times before the information begins to stick." I feel like I'm constantly repeating myself, but by repeating myself, my students are understanding that information better and making those connections needed to make the information stick. It not only helps my students, but it really helps those English language learners or struggling students to hear those concepts over and over and over so that they can get a better understanding and they can hear them a multitude of ways. And this just really allows for that positive connection in the assessment process. My last goal continues on with the brain-friendly approach by greeting my students at the door. This is something I've done in the past and I've had students get involved. I think it's just really beneficial in making those connections with students and creating positive relationships between student and teacher. And it can help you to identify how students are feeling, how their day is going to go, and just puts that day off on a good foot. I have a lot of new plans and strategies I'm ready to implement this next school year. The first one is continuing on with the growth mindset. I feel like I do this pretty well, but I know there's room to grow. One way I like to promote growth mindset in my classroom is to emphasize positive talk when talking about ourselves, our learning, and others. Once my students understand that concept, I often hear them using that with their peers or giving words of encouragement, compliments. It really has changed our way of learning in our classroom. Also, one of my goals with this is to have my students take ownership in the process of learning. And I think that really relies on how I praise my students and that their knowledge is meaningful and what they're learning is something they'll use throughout their whole lives. Next, I plan to use a formative assessment approach daily in my classroom. I can use this to justify the adjustments I need to make student achievement increase, as well as their understanding of the concepts. I would like to use a variation of assessment methods such as selected student response, open-ended questioning, and performance assessment task. The variation of methods provide students with ample opportunity